You don't know the power of the dark side.
Welcome to Star Wars Chatter, hosted by Andor Van Zark. Now you're listening with power.
Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Chatter. I'm Andor Van Zark, and this is your safe space which goes Star Wars and music. And today we're going to talk about that Andor Chapter 7. Let's recap it, let's give our final thoughts, and let's do what we got to do. But before, a word from our sponsor and the spoiler sweeper. The sponsor of my stream and podcast is DistroKid. If you want 7% off on your first subscription with DistroKid, release your music to the world on every major music platform. Make sure to go to my website, andrewvanzark.com, and click on the discount link under the tab of DistroKid.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Then stop at Star Wars Chatter. If you're a Star Wars fan or like video games, comics, cartoons, manga, anime, and electronic music, Japanese rock, Japanese pop, at www.andrewvanzark.com and click on the radio tab to listen to the live feed or the podcast where I have my pre-recorded condensed episodes. Or if you're around Guaynabo, tune in to 91.7 FM to listen live on your car or any radio receiver. And also, check out my music on every major music platform. And tune in at twitch.tv/AndrewVanZark to see me play video games and do my live concerts on the weekend. Trust in the Force, no light speeding, and buckle up. Now, you're listening with power. Power to the music, and may the Force be with you. This is a spoiler warning.
Well, I didn't see that coming.
If you don't like spoilers, make sure to tune out.
Please hang up and try again.
But if you know what we're talking about, make sure to leave me a message on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or tuning to my next live show at twitch.tv/AndrewVanZark and leave me a message there on the chat. So let's get started and listen at your own risk. Now we can get started with Star Wars Andor, with Chapter 7's recap and review. One of the many things that fascinate me about Andor is the way it makes you feel empathy, even admiration for the employees of the Empire. Part of the explanation for this phenomenon is the simple fact that it's simply a better in-work of filmmaking than the vast majority of Star Wars material out there. Of course, the Imperials and the lackeys are going to feel more fully human because everyone does. But even as the show chronicles the touch-and-go, knife-edge early days of the rebellion, it paints portraits of Imperials you won't mind having a conversation with. If it weren't for, the fascism, but still, it's always about it. So let's take Dedra Meero, for example, the Imperial Security Bureau officer trying her damnedest to figure out the exact contour and scope of the nascent rebellion. Throttled by bureaucracy and backstabbing colleagues, she takes advantage of new laws passed in the wake of the Aldhani raid. The Patriot Act, basically to work around those obstacles and get the information she needs from a galaxy-wide survey, instead of going sector by sector as mandated, and she gets results. Enough information, she says, to prove her theory about the coordinated galaxy-wide rebellion is correct. And instead of chiding her for breaking the rules, being overambitious, her supervisor, Mayor Pargas, rewards her. He compliments her moxies and initiatives, wondering how much better off they'd be all if everyone worked for him displayed the same qualities. He gives her control of the sector previously under the commands of the primary office rival, and she smiles and smirks and enjoys being the primary officer in the command of that sector. and he wants her to watch her back, knowing what kind of people they're all dealing with. As played by Anter Leeser, Partagaz, a charming guy, intimidating by insightful, this kind of boss you're both scared of and kind of in a odd way of too. And Denise Go plays Dedra as nothing but compliment, strikingly so. Truly skilled at her job, pretty good, in a way that makes you like and respect a person. These are remarkable, precise performances that endear you to the characters. I mean, again, if it weren't for, the fascism, but still, it's always about that, like I said before. Then there's poor old Saria Khan, the corpo cop who got bounced for his disastrous attempt to capture Cassian Andor, the one we're all looking for when it comes to the Imperials. So wearing an ill-fitting suit, relentlessly harried by his awful mother, he winds up working in a massive cubicle farm, doing God knows what for God knows why. He seems grateful for the job, especially when the guy who hires him offers to fudge his records a bit to hide the charges that led him firing. But he's still just a cog in a massive, massive machine. The final shot, with echoes with final shots of Raiders of the Lost Ark, effectively buries him in the visual's representation of bureaucracy. It's unlikely we'll never see him again. He's a main character, but of all means, But what a fitting and ignominious fate for that character. None of this is to say that this makes the Empire itself sympathetic. On the contrary, it rarely seemed as frightening. Its deprivation as cruel. Stormtroopers marching down a street truly have the feel of an occupancy army, especially when they turn and hang a man they've mistaken for a protester. The man's name is Clem, if you're wondering how Cassian arrived at his nom de guerre. Now, looking a little further into Chapter 7, probe droids flying through the air are appropriately insectoid and menacing. When a Star Destroyer flies over the head of Cinta, the Aldani Raider, who remained on the planet when everyone else escapes, you can all but feel its mass weighing down on her. And having escaped from both Aldani and his old home on Ferrix, where he tries and fails to persuade his surrogate mother Marva, which is sadly that she wouldn't comply and understand Andor, but at the same time, Andor did not understand why Marva was doing what she was doing, who wants to stay and help the rebellion, and his ex-girlfriend Bix, who wants nothing to do with him anymore, to flee with him. Andor winds up in a tourist spot on the beach with new name and beautiful new girlfriend. But despite being completely innocent, at least in this case, he winds up getting wrongfully charged. And that's how Andor gets roughed up by an Imperial security droid. And he gets sentenced for 6 years, That is incredible. That's a lot of years for someone that didn't do anything. And then again, it's not the first time you've seen someone wrongly convicted to prison. So, he did nothing in this case. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time and ran into the wrong cop. The Kafkaesque situation that results, complete with a sham trial, brings the Empire's repression home. But its enemies are still very active and glamorous as all hell. Shows up on Coruscant to speak with Kayla and Luthen Rail's assistant. Kayla gives Vel the orders to track down the devil at play. Given that these are good guys we're talking about here, and we root for their success, even as we hope in this case for their failure. This is a very dangerous game they're playing. After all, as the tension between leaders Luthen and Mon Mothma make clear, and it was really interesting how she played on words to get Lear Luthen leader Luthen to understand her point of view. So Mothma is aghast that Luthen authorized the raid on Aldhani, knowing the repression it has unleashed. Luthen, a classic accelerationist, says that the whole point, they've got to make sure people realize just how bad things are. And Mothma is taking big risk of her own. At a fancy party thrown by her husband Perrin, she approaches a childhood friend turned banker, Tay Kolma, Ben Miles, quickly sussing out that he has rebel sympathies. In a grimly funny bit, he warned her to stop asking questions about his politics, since he might just be too hardcore for her. Am I right, you know? She asked him to help her access her family fortune. Now difficult for her to do because her mainstream liberal public face has drawn scrutiny from the Empire. Not so deliberate, she says. She creates charitable foundations and argues on behalf of the remnants of the separatist movement from the prickles as the smoke and screen. For her far more radical work, Underground, Actor Miles, and G. Veens O'Reilly's are very, very, very telegnetic pair with real chemistry, and I hope we see more of them together. Again, it's the attention to detail in Stephen Skiff's writing, in Benjamin Caron's directing, in acting, in character construction, in world building, in images, even in the banging synth pop of Nicholas Brittle's brilliant score that makes Andor such a vivid and impressive work. Not to sound like a broken record, but this is Star Wars, the greatest show so far. And for God's sake, and major moments hinge on things like the height of a colored, the hurt feelings of old axes, squabbling among co-workers, good guys acting ruthlessly, and bad guys acting sympathetically, an old woman deciding to risk what's left of her life for a cause bigger than herself, a cubicle farm, the passage of a all-powerful Homeland Security bill, a nude woman recycling in bed as Andor pretends to take a shower so he can go through his loot in private. I keep coming back to this phrase. It's a real show, and a real good damn show of that, I might say. And I love dark and how great this show feels. It feels like adult-ish Star Wars show, in my opinion. So, thank you for listening, thank you for being here, and thank you for being awesome. I'll catch you on the flip side. This was the
Star Wars Chatter, hosted by Andor Manzar.
If you have any thoughts or any messages that you want to leave me, go check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Or my website, www.andorvansart.com. And I'll catch you on the flip side. When you listen to Andor Van Zark, you listen with power. Now, you're listening with power. Andor Van Zark. Stream on every major music platform. Power to the music.